Who won the 2020 election for President of the United States?
President Biden was certified as the winner of that election.
So you give the standard answer. You can't say that he won because he got the majority of votes and also got the Electoral College victory?
I think the characterizations that you just made, Senator, are both political, and so I can't address them under the canons, and they're also tied up in ongoing litigation.
Help me understand how it's political to state who got the most votes in any election.
Senator, I'm just trying to be precise. The process by which our country declares the victor in an election is a certification process. President Biden was certified.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Welcome. This question of temperament obviously is relevant. You'd acknowledge that?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. And you made a comment in response to Senator Booker was asking you questions, and I'll ask these as well, that complaints were never made ethically, and there'd be a responsibility of an attorney to make those ethical complaints under the judicial code. I just have to say I disagree with that. I mean, I was a defense attorney, worked with many prosecutors, had enormous respect for those prosecutors. So the temperament issue doesn't always get into the question of whether it's an ethical violation, but it does get into the temperament and why that, in my view, is very important, whatever our job is, but particularly for a judge where you've got that incredible power. So I do want to go through some of these questions that have been raised by that letter that was sent making some complaints about you. You were described as vindictive. There was references to abuse of power, a refusal to engage in any discussion about the case. And there was one in particular that stood out to me. One of the attorneys in a case involving someone who was detained had information that the person had in fact reported as required. And he was trying to provide you with this information because the hearing about his client's well-being was to take place soon. And it says that you snippily told me that he would not even try to call the PO, I assume that's probation officer, on such short notice after I suggested he could at least try to reach out, and then you might get lucky and catch him. Is that true?
No, Senator, it's not true. And that's exactly the type of issue raised in that email where it's an allegation about an abuse of power that, if true—
So you did make the phone call?
No, the whole episode as described in that email is not accurate. And if
I'm not going to know that, and I'm not sure you do, but the basic point here is that you could have made a phone call that would have resolved the situation, whether that his client had in fact reported or had not, and you wouldn't make it. So you're denying that that's true.
I do deny, and I think the paragraph describes that one of my colleagues stepped in.
All right, let me go on to the next one. Thank you for giving me your answer. The prosecutorial misconduct scandal, that is of concern to me and presumably would be of great concern to you in your job as a prosecutor. And what the judge found, that errors were so severe that following a jury verdict in his favor, the government determined that further prosecution of the case would not be in the interest of justice. I mean, this is a case where there were prosecutorial assets used, there was a conviction, and then the prosecution had to end it, right?
Right, and I was one of the supervisors who participated in that decision because I was so disturbed by the violations that had taken place.
But what the judge said, as I understand it, is that you offered little in the way of supervision.
And so, as I've said, I respect Judge Nathan's decision. That aspect of the opinion—
But he said that, right?
It said that, but it was always difficult for me to square that with the fact that during the operative weekend, on both days, I was with the prosecutors. The record reflects that I spoke to the prosecutors at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, at 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
Well,
so again, I'm not perfect, but I did do my best there. My best wasn't enough, and I acknowledge that. But I don't think it's true that I didn't work hard on it.
Let me go on to a third thing. In 2021, the Southern District's Executive Committee initiated a formal investigation into your conduct. And my understanding is that after that happened, that's when you shortly thereafter left the Southern District. Is that correct?
No.
When did you leave the Southern District?
December of 2021.
December of 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's shortly after the 2021 investigation. Have you ever been asked or had to take anger management or behavioral management at the Southern District?
No.
All right. Who won the 2020 election for President of the United States?
President Biden was certified as the winner of that election.
So you give the standard answer. You can't say that he won because he got the majority of votes and also got the Electoral College victory?
I think the characterizations that you just made, Senator, are both political, and so I can't address them under the canons, and they're also tied up in ongoing litigation.
Help me understand how it's political to state who got the most votes in any election.
Senator, I'm just trying to be precise. The process by which our country declares the victor in an election is a certification process. President Biden was certified.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Welch.
Yield back.
This exchange between Senator Peter Welch and Judicial Nominee Emil Bove is a textbook example of how political caution can erode public confidence in integrity and truth, even among those aspiring to serve on the federal bench. Welch's questioning wasn't a gotcha moment. It was a fundamental test of honesty, judgment, and temperament, qualities that define judicial credibility. Senator Welch began by grounding his questioning in temperament, an often overlooked but absolutely critical trait for anyone wielding judicial authority. Judges must not only know the law, but embody impartiality, respect, and humility. Welch pointed to credible allegations of prosecutorial misconduct and abusive behavior under Bove's supervision, not to smear him, but to expose how temperament translates into real-world consequences for fairness and justice. When prosecutors or judges disregard basic decency and process, people's lives, liberty, and trust in the system are what's at stake. But the most revealing moment came when Welch asked the simplest, most factual question possible: who won the 2020 election for President of the United States? This wasn't a trick, it wasn't partisan theater, it was a truth test, and Bove failed it. Instead of clearly stating that Joe Biden won both the popular and electoral college vote, Bove dodged with legalistic evasions, saying only that President Biden was certified as the winner. That's a lawyerly hedge, not a statement of truth. For a judicial nominee, that's alarming, because the question wasn't about ongoing litigation, it wasn't political, it was factual. And if a potential judge can't state an uncontested fact, who won an election certified years ago, what happens when they're asked to interpret facts in a courtroom? Welch's restraint made his point even sharper. He didn't grandstand. He calmly showed that this nominee, under oath, couldn't affirm the basic reality of a democratic election. That should concern anyone, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, who believes judges must stand on truth, not partisan fear. This moment matters beyond the Senate hearing room, because the rule of law doesn't just depend on statutes and precedent, it depends on people in power having the courage to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Judicial nominees who can't do that in public testimony will only deepen cynicism in the system they're supposed to protect. Senator Welch's line of questioning, therefore, was about more than Emil Bove. It was about reaffirming that truth is not partisan, and that refusing to say who won the 2020 election is not neutrality, it's cowardice. When the truth becomes something to tiptoe around, democracy itself begins to wobble. If you believe judges must be honest, accountable, and grounded in fact, not ideology, pay attention to these hearings. They reveal not just who's being nominated, but whether truth still matters in our institutions. Stay informed, speak up, and demand integrity from every nominee who seeks the power to judge others.